The rain hammered against the small apartment window like it had a personal grudge against the glass. Jade Martinez sat curled up in the corner of her tiny living room, knees pulled to her chest, staring at the overdue bills scattered across the coffee table. The electricity notice glowed red in the lamplight. Final warning stamped across the top in bold letters. Her 6-year-old daughter Emma was finally asleep in the bedroom they shared. Her small body curled around a worn stuffed elephant named Peanut. Jade had spent the last hour listening to Emma cough, knowing she needed medicine. Couldn't afford a doctor visit that would drain what little money they had left. Working 2 jobs barely kept them afloat. Days at the local diner where she served coffee and forced smiles, nights cleaning office buildings downtown when the city slept. Still, it wasn't enough. It was never enough. Her phone buzzed with another text from the landlord. Rent was due tomorrow, and she was $300 short. Her hands shook as she scrolled through her contacts, looking for her sister Rebecca's number. Rebecca lived in Seattle now, had a good job, might be able to help just this once. Through her tears, Jade's fingers moved across the cracked screen. Rebecca, I don't know what to do anymore. Emma's sick, and I can't afford her medicine. The landlord is threatening eviction, and I'm so scared. I feel like I'm failing her every single day. I work so hard, but nothing changes. Please tell me it gets better. She hit send before she could. Second-guessed herself, then immediately felt the familiar wave of shame. She hated asking for help, hated admitting she couldn't handle things alone. But for Emma, she would swallow her pride 1,000 times over. The phone buzzed almost immediately. Jade wiped her eyes, expecting Rebecca's usual mixture of sympathy and practical advice. Instead, she saw something that made her heart skip. Unknown number. I don't think this was meant for me. But I want you to know you're not failing anyone. You're fighting harder than most people could imagine. Jade stared at the screen, confusion replacing panic. She checked the number she'd texted. Her stomach dropped. Her emotional state, she'd mistyped the last digit of Rebecca's number. Jade. I'm so sorry. That wasn't meant for you. Please ignore unknown number. No need to apologize. Sometimes the universe puts messages where they need to be. Jade, you don't understand. I just dumped my entire life crisis on a complete stranger. Unknown number. And yet here I am, at 2 a.m. Grateful for the reminder that real problems exist outside my bubble. Something in his words stopped her from deleting the conversation. There was no mockery, no dismissal, just unexpected kindness from someone who had every right to be annoyed. Jade, why are you awake at 2 a.m. anyway? An unknown number? Same reason you are. Respect. Life doesn't pause for normal sleeping hours. Jade, are you going through something too unknown number? Different problems? Same middle of a night wait? 15 floors above the city? Oliver Hayes set down his phone and walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse office. The Portland skyline glittered below, each light representing lives he'd never thought about, struggles he'd never known. He'd built a tech empire worth billions. But tonight, a stranger's raw honesty had cracked something open inside him. He'd been raised with every advantage money could buy. Private schools, Ivy League education, connections that opened doors before he even knocked. But success had built walls around him. Everyone wanted something. Every relationship had an agenda. Every conversation felt calculated. This woman's text, meant for someone else, was the first genuine human moment he'd experienced in years. Oliver. Can I ask your name? Jade, and you Oliver? Oliver, Jade. Well, Oliver. Thanks for not being horrible about my meltdown, Oliver. Thank you for reminding me what courage looks like, Jade. Courage? I'm literally hiding in my living room crying. Oliver, you're working 2 jobs, raising a daughter alone and still fighting. That's not hiding. That's surviving a battle most people couldn't handle. Jade found herself crying again, but for a different reason. When was the last time someone had seen her struggle as strength instead of failure? Jade, I should let you get some sleep. Oliver, I wasn't sleeping anyway. But Jade, Oliver, your daughter is lucky to have someone who fights this hard for her. The conversation ended there, but neither of them deleted the thread. Over the next week, They exchanged messages sporadically. Nothing too personal. Nothing that crossed boundaries. Oliver never pushed for details about her situation. Jade never asked about his late-night problems. But somehow, those brief exchanges became the bright spots in both their days. For Jade, it was knowing someone out there understood that life could feel overwhelming. As for Oliver, it was connecting with someone who saw him as just a person. It's not a bank account or a business opportunity. Oliver. How is Emma feeling, Jade? Better. I managed to get her medicine. Oliver. I'm glad, Jade. How was your day, Oliver? Long meetings about nothing important. How was yours, Jade? Spilled coffee on 3 different customers and somehow got tipped anyway. Oliver. Must have a good smile. Jade. Or they felt sorry for the clumsy waitress. Oliver. I doubt that. These small moments built something neither expected. Oliver found himself checking his phone between board meetings, hoping for a message that would ground him. Jade discovered that having someone to share the small victories and defeats made the load feel lighter. 2 weeks after the first accidental text, everything changed. Jade was working her night shift at the Meridian Tower. It's one of downtown Portland's newest office buildings. She'd been assigned to clean the top floors where the executive offices were located. It paid slightly better than her usual buildings, though she had to pass 3 security checkpoints to get there. She was vacuuming the hallway outside the executive offices when she heard voices. A meeting was running late, which meant she'd have to wait to clean those rooms. She turned off the vacuum and moved to organize her supplies, trying to be invisible. The conference room doors opened, and several people in expensive suits walked out, their voices carrying the confident tones of people used to being heard. The quarterly projections look solid, but I want those marketing numbers reviewed again, one voice said, and something about it made Jade's heart skip. She knew that voice, had heard it in her head every time she read his messages over the past 2 weeks. She turned slowly, and there he was, tall, early 30s, with dark hair and kind eyes behind designer glasses. He was shaking hands with the other executives, his attention focused on their conversation. Oliver Hayes. She recognized him from business articles she'd seen online, though she'd never connected the name to her mysterious texting friend. Her unknown number wasn't unknown anymore. It was one of the richest men in the Pacific Northwest. As if sensing her stare, Oliver looked up. Their eyes met across the hallway, and she watched recognition dawn in his face. His conversation stopped, mid-sentence. For a moment, neither moved. The weight of 2 weeks of honest conversation hung between them, along with the reality of their vastly different worlds. Jade was the first to look away. She grabbed her cleaning cart and hurried toward the service elevator, her heart pounding. Behind her, she heard Oliver excuse himself from his colleagues. Wait, he called softly. But the elevator doors were already closing, and Jade was gone. That night, her phone stayed silent. No messages from the unknown number that had become her lifeline. She sat in her small apartment, Emma asleep beside her, and wondered if discovering his identity had ruined the only genuine connection she'd made in years. She understood why he hadn't texted. What could a billionaire CEO possibly say to the cleaning woman who'd accidentally shared her deepest fears with him? The magic of their anonymous friendship had been shattered by the harsh light of reality. But what Jade didn't know was that 15 floors above the city, Oliver sat in his penthouse office, staring at his phone, composing and deleting message after message. Not because he was embarrassed or disappointed, but because he was terrified that knowing who she was would make her disappear from his life completely. The girl who had accidentally texted him wasn't just a struggling single mother. She was brave, funny, real in ways he'd forgotten existed. And now that he knew her face, knew the strength it took for her to smile while carrying such heavy burdens. He was falling for her in a way that had nothing to do with charity and everything to do with genuine connection. The question was whether she would give him the chance to prove it. 3 days passed in silence. Jade threw herself into work, picking up extra shifts at the diner and cleaning buildings until her hands were raw. Every time her phone buzzed, her heart jumped, but it was always Bill's, work schedules, or Emma's. School sending reminders about upcoming events they couldn't afford. Emma noticed her mother's distraction. "Mommy, why are you sad?" she asked over breakfast, her small fingers tracing patterns in her cereal. "I'm not sad, sweetheart. Just tired," Jade replied, forcing a smile as she packed Emma's lunch with the last of their peanut butter. "You keep looking at your phone like it's broken," out of the mouths of babes. Jade kissed Emma's forehead and walked her to the daycare 3 blocks away. Mrs. Patterson. The owner was a kind woman who sometimes let payments slide when times were particularly tough. "How are you holding up, dear?" Mrs. Patterson asked, as Emma ran inside to join her friends. "Getting by," Jade replied, the standard answer that meant everything and nothing. "There's a job fair downtown this weekend. Some big companies are hiring. Might be worth checking out." Jade nodded, though she knew her resume wouldn't impress anyone looking for more than minimum wage workers. Still, hope was free, even when nothing else was. That afternoon, while wiping down tables at the diner, her phone finally buzzed with the message she'd been dreading and hoping for. "Oliver, I know this is complicated now, but I'd like to talk. Would you meet me for coffee?" Her hands trembled as she read it. The lunch rush was dying down, and her manager Tony was in a good mood. She could probably take a short break. "Jade, I get off work at 3. There's a place called Rosie's on 5th Street. Oliver, I'll be there." Rosie's was the kind of neighborhood, coffee shop that served burnt coffee in chipped mugs and had chairs that didn't match. It was also the kind of place where a billionaire would stand out like a lighthouse in a cornfield. Jade arrived first, choosing a corner table where she could see the door. She ordered black coffee because it was cheapest and waited, her stomach churning with anxiety. Oliver walked in at exactly 3:15, and she watched him scan the room. He'd traded his expensive suit for jeans and a simple navy sweater, but he still looked like money. Good breeding and confidence weren't things you could dress down. When he spotted her, his face lit up with a genuine smile that made her remember why she'd enjoyed their conversations. He ordered coffee and slid into the seat across from her. "Hi," he said simply. "Hi yourself," she replied, wrapping her hands around her mug for something to do. "I want to start by saying I never lied to you. I just didn't mention what I do for work. And I never mentioned that I clean your office building." They looked at each other across the small table, and suddenly Jade started laughing. It bubbled up from somewhere deep inside, surprising them both. "This is insane," she said, wiping her eyes. "I accidentally texted one of the richest people in Portland and somehow ended up having coffee with him." "I prefer to think you texted someone who needed to hear what you had to say," Oliver replied. "The money part is just details." "Details?" Jade's laughter faded. "Oliver, you could buy my entire apartment building with your pocket change." "We don't live in the same world." "Maybe not," he admitted. "But we're both human beings, trying to figure out how to get through each day. That conversation we had, those messages we've been sending, that was real. The rest is just circumstances." Jade studied his face, looking for the catch, the angle, the thing that would make sense of why he was here. "What do you want from me?" "I want to keep talking to you. I want to know how Emma's doing with her cough. I want to hear about your customers at the diner and whether you got that stubborn stain out of the carpet on the 14th floor. You noticed that?" "I noticed more than you think." They talked for an hour, about everything and nothing. Oliver asked about Emma's favorite books and listened intently when Jade described her daughter's elaborate bedtime rituals. Jade found herself relaxing, remembering why his messages had become important to her. "I have to pick up Emma," she said finally, checking the time. "Can I walk with you?" Jade hesitated. This neighborhood isn't exactly where people like you usually hang out. "People like me? Rich people? Important people?" Oliver stood and left money on the table, far more than their coffee cost. "Jade, I've spent the last 10 years surrounded by rich, important people. Most of them are boring, selfish, and would step over someone having a heart attack if it meant closing a deal on time. You're the most interesting person I've met in years." They walked through Jade's neighborhood together, past the laundromat where she spent Sunday mornings, the corner store where Emma loved to look at the penny candy she couldn't have, the playground with broken swings where they spent free afternoons. "It's not much," Jade said, suddenly seeing it through his eyes. "It's home," Oliver replied. That's more than a lot of people have. When they reached the daycare, Emma burst through the door like a small hurricane, her backpack dragging behind. Her mommy? Mrs. Patterson let us paint with our fingers, and I made you a picture of our apartment, but I made it purple because purple is better than white. She stopped short when she noticed Oliver standing beside her mother.
Ow.
Her dark eyes studied him with the serious intensity only children could manage. Are you Mommy's friend? She asked. I hope so, Oliver replied, crouching down to her level. I'm Oliver. I'm Emma. Do you like dinosaurs? I think they're pretty amazing. What's your favorite? Triceratops. Because they have 3 horns and they eat plants, so they're nice. That's an excellent choice. Emma beamed and slipped her hand into Jade's. Can Oliver come see my dinosaur books? Jade's eyes met Oliver's over her daughter's head. This was the moment where things either moved forward or fell apart completely. Maybe another time, sweetheart. Oliver's probably busy. Actually, Oliver said carefully, I'd love to see your dinosaur books if your mom says it's okay. The walk to their apartment building felt surreal. Oliver Hayes, billionaire CEO, climbing 3 flights of stairs that smelled like old cooking and damp carpet. Listening to Emma chatter about her day, their apartment looked even smaller with him in it. 1 bedroom, a living room barely big enough for their second-hand couch, a kitchen where you couldn't open the refrigerator if someone was standing at the stove. But Emma was in her element, dragging out her treasured collection of library books about dinosaurs and spreading them across the coffee table. Oliver sat on the floor beside her, asking questions and listening to her elaborate explanations about herbivores versus carnivores. Jade watched from the kitchen doorway, making mac and cheese for dinner and trying to process the impossible scene in her living room. A man worth billions was sitting on her carpet, genuinely engaged with her 6-year-old's dinosaur obsession. Mommy, can Oliver stay for dinner? Emma asked. Oh, sweetheart, I'm sure Oliver has other plans. I'd love to stay if there's enough. Oliver interrupted. There wasn't really. But Jade stretched the mac and cheese with some frozen vegetables, and they made it work. Oliver ate like it was the best meal he'd ever had, complimenting Emma on her choice of dinosaur-shaped pasta. After dinner, Emma fell asleep during story time, curled up between Jade and Oliver on the couch. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, Emma's small body warm and trusting against them. She's amazing, Oliver whispered. She's everything, Jade replied. Jade, I want to help. I can't take your money. I'm not talking about money. Talking about being here, being part of this. Jade looked at him in the lamplight, Emma sleeping between them, and felt something shift in her chest. Not just attraction, though that was definitely there. Something deeper. The recognition that this man wasn't trying to rescue her or fix her problems. He was asking to share them. This is complicated, she said softly. Most good things are. People will talk. They'll say I'm using you, or you're slumming it, or let them talk. The only opinions that matter are in this room. Emma stirred in her sleep, and Oliver carefully lifted her, following Jade to the bedroom. He waited in the doorway while Jade tucked her daughter in, kissing her forehead and whispering goodnight. They stood in the hallway afterward, suddenly aware they were alone. I should go, Oliver said, though he made no move toward the door. Probably, Jade agreed, stepping closer instead of backing away. When he kissed her, it was soft and careful, like he was afraid she might disappear. Jade's hands found the front of his sweater, holding on as the rest of the world faded away. They broke apart slowly, foreheads touching. This is really happening, Jade whispered. Is that okay? Instead of answering, she kissed him again. 6 weeks later, Jade's life had transformed in ways she never could have imagined. Oliver had kept his promise about not trying to fix everything with money, but his presence had fixed things in ways that mattered more. He showed up for Emma's parent-teacher conference when Jade had to work a double shift. He spent Saturday mornings at the playground, pushing Emma on the swings and listening to her elaborate stories about the adventures of various leaves and rocks she collected. Most importantly, he was there in the small moments. When Emma had nightmares, when Jade's car broke down, when the electricity bill came due, and Jade's pride warred with her practical needs. I got a promotion at the diner, Jade announced one evening as they walked through downtown Portland. Emma skipped ahead of them, chasing pigeons and naming each one. That's amazing. What does that mean? Day shift supervisor. It's better hours, better pay. I might actually be able to quit the cleaning job. Oliver stopped walking and pulled her into his arms, spinning her around right there on the sidewalk. Emma cheered and demanded her own spin. We should celebrate, Oliver said as he set Jade down. Ice cream, Emma shouted. Ice cream it is. They found a small parlor and sat outside, Emma working her way through a cone nearly as big as her head, while Jade and Oliver shared a sundae. I have something to tell you, Oliver said, his expression growing serious. Jade's stomach dropped. 6 weeks of happiness felt too good to last. The company is expanding. We're opening a new branch in Seattle. It's good, right? For business? It's great for business. But it means I'll need to spend time there. A lot of time, especially. Over the next few months, Emma looked up from her ice cream, somehow sensing the shift in mood. Are you going away, Oliver? Just for work trips, kiddo. But I'll always come back. Promise? Promise. That night after Emma was asleep, Jade and Oliver sat on her small balcony, looking out at the city lights. How long will you be gone? She asked. A few days at a time, maybe a week here and there. It's not permanent. It's okay. We managed before you came along. Oliver turned to face her. Jade, that's not what I want. I don't want you to just manage. I want us to build something together. What are you saying? I'm saying I love you. Both of you. I want to figure out how to make this work long term. Jade's heart hammered against her ribs. Oliver, I know it's complicated. I know there are obstacles, but I also know that what we have is worth fighting for. She kissed him instead of answering, because the words felt too big and too scary to say out loud. But as they held each other under the Portland sky, both of them knew something fundamental had shifted. The first test came 2 weeks later when Oliver had to leave for Seattle. Emma cried when he said goodbye, clinging to his neck like she could keep him from going through sheer force of will. It's just 5 days, Oliver promised, kissing the top of her head. 5 days is forever, Emma sniffled. Then I'll have to bring you something extra special when I come back. While Oliver was gone, Jade realized how much their life had changed. Not just practically, though having someone to help with Emma and share the daily burdens had been a relief she hadn't known she needed. But emotionally, too. She'd gotten used to having someone to talk to about the small victories and defeats of each day. Oliver called every night, video chatting with Emma and listening to her detailed reports about school, the playground, and the new family of cats that had appeared in the alley behind their building. I miss you, Jade, said one night after Emma had fallen asleep during their call. I miss you too. Both of you. This is harder than I thought it would be. For me too. But Jade, it doesn't change anything. You're still the best thing that's happened. To me, when Oliver returned, he brought Emma a stuffed triceratops and Jade a small potted plant for their balcony. It's rosemary, he explained. For your kitchen garden? I don't have a kitchen garden. You do now. We can start small and build from there. It was such a perfect metaphor for their relationship that Jade laughed out loud. The second test was bigger and came from an unexpected direction. Jade was working her last week at the cleaning company when she overheard a conversation that made her blood run cold. 2 executives were talking about Oliver, and they mentioned her by name. Have you seen the pictures? Hayes with some single mother from the east side. My wife says it's all over social media. Some waitress with a kid. I think it's serious. God, I hope not. Can you imagine the board's reaction? It's bad enough he's been distracted lately, but if he's actually serious about this girl, maybe it's just a phase. Rich guys slumming it happens all the time. Jade finished her work in mechanical silence, her mind spinning. She'd known this would happen eventually. She'd seen the photos too. Someone had snapped pictures of them at the ice cream parlor. At the playground, walking down the street together, she hadn't told Oliver about them because she'd hoped they would just fade away. But apparently they'd made it into the circles that mattered for his business. That night, she waited until Emma was asleep before bringing it up. Did you know people are talking about us? About me? Oliver's face darkened. What kind of talking? The kind where they wonder what a billionaire CEO is doing with a waitress and her kid? Jade, I don't care what people say, but your business partners do. Your board of directors does. Your investors do. None of that matters. Part 2. When worlds collide. 3 days passed in silence. Jade threw herself into work, picking up extra shifts at the diner and cleaning buildings until her hands were raw. Every time her phone buzzed, her heart jumped. But it was always Bill's work schedules, or Emma's school sending reminders about upcoming events they couldn't afford. Emma noticed her mother's distraction. "Mommy, why are you sad?" she asked over breakfast, her small fingers tracing patterns in her cereal. "I'm not sad, sweetheart. Just tired," Jade replied, forcing a smile as she packed Emma's lunch with the last of their peanut butter. "You keep looking at your phone like it's broken."
Out
of the mouths of babes, Jade kissed Emma's forehead and walked her to the daycare 3 blocks away. Mrs. Patterson. The owner was a kind woman who sometimes let payments slide when times were particularly tough. "How are you holding up, dear?" Mrs. Patterson asked. As Emma ran inside to join her friends, "Getting by," Jade replied, the standard answer that meant everything and nothing. "You know, there's a job fair downtown this weekend. Some big companies are hiring. Might be worth checking out." Jade nodded. Though she knew her resume wouldn't impress anyone looking for more than minimum wage workers, still, hope was free, even when nothing else was. That afternoon, while wiping down tables at the diner, her phone finally buzzed with the message she'd been dreading and hoping for. "Oliver, I know this is complicated now, but I'd like to talk. Would you meet me for coffee?" Her hands trembled as she read it. The lunch rush was dying down, and her manager Tony was in a good mood. She could probably take a short break. "Jade, I get off work at 3. There's a place called Rosie's on 5th Street. Oliver, I'll be there." Rosie's was the kind of neighborhood coffee shop that served burnt coffee in chipped mugs and had chairs that didn't match. It was also the kind of place where a billionaire would stand out like a lighthouse in a cornfield. Jade arrived first, choosing a corner table where she could see the door. She ordered black coffee because it was cheapest and waited, her stomach churning with anxiety. Oliver walked in at exactly 3:15, and she watched him scan the room. He traded his expensive suit for jeans and a simple navy sweater, but he still looked like money. Good breeding and confidence weren't things you could dress down. When he spotted her, his face lit up with a genuine smile that made her remember why she'd enjoyed their conversations. He ordered coffee and slid into the seat across from her. "Hi," he said simply. "Hi yourself," she replied, wrapping her hands around her mug for something to do. "I want to start by saying I never lied to you. I just didn't mention what I do for work. I never mentioned that I clean your office building." They looked at each other across the small table, and suddenly Jade started laughing. It bubbled up from somewhere deep inside, surprising them both. "This is insane," she said, wiping her eyes. "I accidentally texted one of the richest people in Portland, and somehow ended up having coffee with him." "I prefer to think you texted someone who needed to hear what you had to say," Oliver replied. "The money part is just details." "Details?" Jade's laughter faded. "Oliver, you could buy my entire apartment building with your pocket change. We don't live in the same world." "Maybe not," he admitted. "But we're both human beings trying to figure out how to get through each day. That conversation we had, those messages we've been sending, that was real. The rest is just circumstances." Jade studied his face, looking for the catch, the angle, the thing that would make sense of why he was here. "What do you want from me?" "I want to keep talking to you. I want to know how Emma's doing with her cough. I want to hear about your customers at the diner and whether you got that stubborn stain out of the carpet on the 14th floor. You noticed that. I notice more than you think." They talked for an hour, about everything and nothing. Sometimes, the universe really did put messages exactly where they needed to be.